It is McCluskey with Unpopular Parts of a Pig from the new album, the first in 20 years. The world is still here, and so are we. And we celebrate that fact tonight by talking to Andrew Falkous from McCluskey via the wonders of the internet. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
How are you? I'm pretty good. I would say I'm an 8.5 out of 10 today. 8.5, 8.6, 8.7 perhaps out of 10.
Well, that's good to hear. And it's interesting to hear that you're giving that kind of a number, that you're weighing things up in that fashion.
Well, you know what? You asked the question. I thought it deserved a full and proper answer after a bit of thought. And you seem to care, so I really went in deep.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I guess the big question is, the world is still here, and so are we. The idea that we would have a new album by McCluskey was something that at one point in those past 20 years would have seemed unthinkable. How did it all come about?
But by accident and by momentum, really. Yeah, it would have been unthinkable to me as far as I was concerned. That band was all finished and done. It was a part of its time. It was a part of the people involved in it then. But after we'd started accidentally doing shows in like 2014, 15, at first, to raise money for a venue and then for cancer research. And then we did one or two off shows, but, for the express benefits of ourselves and the people who wanted to see it. But that was it, really. There wasn't any really further consideration. But people kept asking us to play shows. And it's a little bit different organising a show when, say, you've got an album out and you've got to do a tour and people know you've got a tour. And it's like, well, we can give you £800 to fit in here. The way this band worked was somebody would have to say, do you want to do the show? And you could just go, nah, just don't really want to do that. And as a result, it already had a momentum in the individuals in the band, but there's something about that outside momentum which can make it feel really special. I don't want to, descend fully into the, mindset of of a hippie. But when there's a community overstates it, but when it feels like there's an appetite for it, it just feels a little bit different. It feels a little bit different. There is an appeal, I think, in music to raging against the world, to defining yourself against a scene which maybe doesn't represent you. That was certainly the experience of the original McCluskey. That may well be the experience of this, reformation of it, whatever you want to call it. But I don't think it needs that anymore. It doesn't need that dynamic to bounce across, because we felt very ignored in the first incarnation, whereas now it feels like people actually like it.
Yeah, maybe you just didn't realise at the time, because it certainly seemed when the band came to an end, everybody was like, oh no, McCluskey is over. And then that idea just seemed to get bigger and bigger, and people seemed to really miss McCluskey, even though maybe they didn't even get to see you first time round.
Yeah, but I think the key thing you said there is when it came to an end. That's something about the arc of the band. It's sometimes about the way that, say, fans of our kind of music, or bands like us, tend to operate. Though there's it's like the appeal of not being a corporate band in itself can be a form of branding for some people. It's a question of accentuating for some people their DIY-ness, for very much want of a better word, in order to sell their product to people who are turned on by that as well. And sometimes you can see that with smaller bands quite cynically as well. There can be as much marketing or kidding yourself in that world as there can be in corporate music as well. I feel like it is very much a different time, but there are similarities. But the key thing, I've said this in a lot of interviews, so I apologize. The key thing is accepting the nostalgia and going, that's a healthy thing in many ways, but also just not getting lost in that nostalgia. Because if that's all it is, then that nostalgia is good for a weekend fling, innit? It's not good to uproot your life and move to Tunbridge Wells.
Well, I mean, the great thing is that, in a way, once things got going, this was never about nostalgia. So, you put out an EP, that was a great signal that this is moving forward, there's going to be more music, and in a way, it was only a matter of time before this album materialized, because that was the intention. You weren't just doing it initially quite charitably to help raise money for various different causes and save venues and all that kind of stuff, but you kind of realized, oh, actually, hey, one, we enjoy this, and two, people are interested, so maybe we should give it a go. And the world is a richer place now, Andy, because of this.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. It's very nice to... The original, again, part of depending on how you look at it, it's either a myth or a truth about rock and roll, is that a lot of good rock and roll is created in discord with band members who hate each other or stab each other or steal from or whatever. Personally, that's not the way I choose to live my life. And music is an extension or a part of my life as opposed to a nice story for Dan in, again, Tunbridge Wells. I don't know why I'm focusing so particularly on Tunbridge Wells today, to consume. I'm not interested enough in anybody listening to this consuming great art on the basis of me having suffered for it. Like, you know, that's of no interest to me. But that was a lot of the story. McCluskey was born out of the poverty we lived in, the actual poverty. I mean, in the early 2000s, we couldn't have jobs because we were doing so much of the band. It was impossible. But we were living on about $4,000 a year for a few years. It was really, it was tough old times. But there's no romance to that. There's no romance to that in any sense of the word. Some people love... I remember John Chappell saying to me that he preferred making art when he was working in a 24-hour garage. That's part of the narrative, either the narrative or the truth of him as a creative individual. It's not the truth of me as a creative individual. I like to sleep well, and for me, obviously, like everybody out there, I'm probably subconsciously processing being bullied at school, the loss of loved ones, blah, 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 an eternal teenage rage against the world. But in what I'm trying to do is just have fun. So, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, the best time is being in a room with your friends making music.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Especially when you're in charge. Give it a little twist at the end there.
I'm going to keep asking you a few more questions, but I'm also going to keep playing tracks from this new record. So I thought I'd play Cops and Coppers next, which is actually the song on the record that follows Unpopular Parts of a Pig. And you know, when we hear a McCluskey song, and when we hear you venting your spleen and sharing your wisdom in equal measure on these tracks, you cover so much ground in so many short phrases. It seems to me that you always seem to hit a nerve and always seem to touch on quite a variety of different topics just within one song. What are you touching on in Cops and Coppers?
Well, that's a very good question. Because often I can get to the end of writing a song and not know if it's about anything at all, just that it has an internal coherence to me, at least, or the way it jars is coherent. Or I've had, I mean, at the risk of sounding like I'm reading from a book of actual cliches, there's twice whilst doing interviews for this album, French people have explained to me what a couple of the songs are about. And you know what? They've been right as well. But I don't necessarily... Within the terms of the song, and again, this probably sounds incredibly pretentious or boring, but things internally can make sense without you having to justify them, or in the same way that bands don't need a manifesto to have a meaning. But yes, there are a lot of topics touched on, but I think that's reflective as much of the way my mind works and issues I may have, rather than any grand artistic statement. Cops and Coppers begins... I'm always really amused by... Certainly about 20 years ago, there were a lot of cop shows which started to introduce this incredible notion that maybe the cops weren't always the good guys. And the really great shows wore that lightly and gradually showed it to you through the development of character, while other shows, you know, would do it in, frankly, less subtle ways. You know, to the point where you're eternally stroking your imaginary beard and going, oh yeah, maybe the heroin dealers are actually nice people and the cops are. But it's a me, because obviously we know that because of human nature, a lot of cops are not necessarily the best people out there. But I mean, personally, I've never had a positive interaction with the police, particularly as a young man, and I'm essentially a very fearful, law-abiding person. So, you know. but the structure of that song is just all about, I suppose it's all about expectations is what that song is about. But it's really funny just explaining that title. I've said to a few people when we're writing that song, I've got a song, it's called Cops and Coppers. And so I've been corrected on several occasions. No, it's Cops and Robbers. You're like, yeah, that's the joke. Yeah, but that's not right. You go, yeah, okay, well, maybe we should just stop having this conversation. Because also, like with any art that works, in a rehearsal, when you're playing, the things which are really special always when two ideas meet each other, or when there's a problem with an idea, in the way like with really from the kind of weirder or more exciting experimental music I like. Say if you've got three elements in music, two elements have got to be doing something normal for that third element to truly do something unusual and clash with. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, a lot of people think eclecticism is just, I go downstairs and throw the pans out the cupboard and you start shouting in Japanese in the backyard. You know, that sounds like a great time, don't get me wrong, but it's probably just messing on, isn't it?
Excellent. Right, well, we're going to hear Cops and Coppers now. This is McCluskey on X-Posure Radio X. McCluskey on X-Posure Radio X. It's another selection from the new album, the first in 20 years. The world is still here, and so are we. I'm John Kennedy, and connected to me online is Andy from McCluskey, giving us a little insight and background into the new album. The Battle of Los Anglesey is the title of that, with Anglesey spelt Angel C, as opposed to the normal spelling of Anglesey. Which connects it to the Los and Los Angeles, I guess.
Yeah, it's just basically a bad internal joke stroke pun, which seems to have made its way onto a record. And by the way, my name is not to explain the record. My name is to distract you from the deeply disturbing themes which underpin it. It's actually a psyop for several military contracting firms. That's what the whole album is about. But Damien wrote that song. It's one of the only songs that like were brought in, if not fully formed and somewhat formed, because the songs for the most part happen in the room at volume. It's about, you know, the violence and velocity and the fun of being there, and also the weird timings and things that producers, when you're at home, you tend to do things in a more normal, layered kind of way. But that song and that melody, it's great. We played it live for about a year and a half, and it's really nice, and it's really nice to be, when somebody else brings in a song and I don't have to do much over the top of it. It's like a little shortcut for the record, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and so you mentioned Damien. Damien is the newest member of the band, really.
He is.
I guess. Is this the? How do you regard this incarnation of the band? I mean, do you have Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, that kind of way of thinking about it?
Not really. I have my life until 2005, and now this is part of my life after that. So since we still play the songs from the older records, then it doesn't seem like, you know, we've reinvented in any particular way or had this reset. It just, there's these records to pay attention to. But yeah, I don't really have a formal way of thinking it. And to be honest, it's not until we've done a lot of these interviews that I've had to, confront it sounds a bit dramatic, like I've got to meet it in an alley with a shank. But I've really had to think about it, because that is probably a thing for people who are going to be listening to the record. I don't think it's a thing for me though. It's all just good. And don't tell him I told you, but he's a very nice guy. I mean, we've known him for like 11, 12 years now. So this, in some ways, this incarnation of McCluskey has been going longer than the original incarnation. It's just because of different factors, we haven't got to the stage where we can get together and write a record.
Yeah.
So this has taken up a lot more of my life in some senses than the original. Although it would be fair to say it wasn't quite as intense as that first run, because that was like a crazy time. There's several times I've started writing about it or considered writing a book, but so many of the stories would upset people. And I don't mean because of any wild drug groupie kind of behavior, but I mean just people being insane people, sometimes in a diagnosable sense, sometimes frankly in a not. That no, it would just upset the individuals involved too much. And I think for the amount of money it would make, which would be a little, it's not worth upsetting people that much.
yeah. No, understandably. And also, things move on in a way. I sense that, that was then, this is now. And as you say, this is the latest incarnation of the band, but it's also the longest lasting. And, the most kind of solid, I suppose. Well, I just thought I should mention also that Damien used to be in the St. Pierre Snake Invasion, and
still is,
right?
Yeah,
Which
that's his. I don't want to say project because that's a very unmusical word in to my mind, but that's his thing that he's done for years. I mean, his focus is the same as it is with McCluskey, but he tends to push and lead that. That's kind of his role in that. But that's ongoing, I believe, for a good while yet.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. And also, it does beg the question about you and Jack and Future of the Left, because the two are obviously entangled and inextricably linked. But what is Future of the Left? What is McCluskey? You and Jack are in both.
Yeah, for Future of the Left, it's all based on availability. That's what it is, time and availability. Julia has proper jobs. She's doing a Million Dead show in July, 2,000 Trees. We, children, we have single child. Jack has a couple of kids. Damien has a child and more children incoming. So a lot of our life is family life and the vagaries of the kind of family life that lots of people have. Future of the Left is dependent on our availability. There are some songs I write or ideas I have which ultimately sound, without having an agenda to work with, more like Future of the Left and McCluskey. But ultimately Future of the Left songs are written when the 3 or 4, if Ian, who's also an Outbreak, joins us in the rehearsal room, when that room, the songs which are written there are Future of the Left songs. Whether they're good enough or not is another thing. The songs which are written in the room with the other 3 of us are McCluskey songs, if they're good enough. It is possible that a song that each band could write might evoke what the other band would do, in which case that's what B-sides are invented for. I still think of records as singles, and I still think of songs as B-sides and stuff. I think that's the proper and romantic way to look at music. I still say single. Oh, we've got a single coming out. Whereas it's more an online promotional opportunity, isn't it? But to me it's a single. It's this single piece of music which either sucks you in or makes you go down the indie disco and slag them off. Are there any indie discos?
There
anymore?
are still some indie discos, yes, yeah, and interestingly, there's some for all ages and some for specific age groups now.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing, and I like you still think in terms of singles. Although I did have to reassess things when I would talk about B-sides on the radio, and then I got correspondence saying, "You keep talking about these B-sides. I don't know what a B-side is. Can you explain?"
Right.
And that made me have a rethink about how I talked about things.
Because ultimately, even though what you were doing is right and proper, you do have to communicate.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's the thing. I do feel old when I say it. It got to the point where I was like, I feel self-consciously old about it, but now I've decided to just own it. I'm just going to own it. I'm still going to say single. I mean, single for me. I mean, album is the art form. That's what you're striving for. The live show is where you present it in a light entertainment, like Les Dawson kind of vibe. But the album is the art. The single is the lure of stocking to bring you in. Yeah. but it can still be a thing in itself as well. You can love singles by bands, and as you know, as a human, and think that's great, but it's fine then to hate the album. That's totally
I thought I'd play one of the other singles from the album now, People Person, because I kind of often think that you present yourself as a bit of a misanthrope who hates everybody.
Not deliberately.
But deep down, that actually, Andy, you are a people person, and communication is what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm one of those frightful, awful people who call people to talk to them. Texting isn't human contact for me. But the thing is, when you call somebody, somebody's got the opportunity to simply not answer the call, I suppose. And I think I have just enough social skills to know when somebody really doesn't want to talk to you. I just love talking to and listening to other people. It's great. It's like doing interviews for an album. It's great. People asking you questions about yourself. It's amazing. You know, unless you're being tortured by the Stasi or something. I imagine that's less amazing. But yeah, I'm well up for talking and communicating. And people person. Yeah, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure the singer of that song is a people person, but I think I am a people person. Hashtag not all people.
Excellent, and I love that distinction as well that you make there. That's very good.
I just want to say that people person is one of my favourite songs ever, even if it did give me tinnitus, or rather, if that was the tipping point for me having tinnitus. If I was designing the music that you can't, but the kind of music I would want to write would be like People Person or Chekhov's Guns. I love those two songs. So I love the whole album, but I love those songs so much it's actually quite embarrassing.
But quite interesting that you say that. And what makes you like those two songs so much? You know, is it the sound? Is it the language?
It's everything about them. It's the sound, it's the language, it's the fact that everything fits. It's the internal coherence, again, which isn't apparent. It's the way it writes itself. It's the way that both songs have very odd structures in terms of verses and chorus and things, but you don't notice it. It's those are the kinds of things I like about songs, because for me, even with one of my own songs, if I'm listening to it and I start thinking about the internal workings of it, there's something, it doesn't mean I don't like it, but something somewhere isn't working, because I'm thinking about it as opposed to just experiencing it. I think all the really good music, definitely the first time you hear it, you experience it first. And then even as a musician, maybe you need to allow yourself to experience it first, rather than trying to picture, this bit really pops because of the bass tone. It's like, could you just listen to the song? You know, what does it do to you? What does it do to you emotionally first, and then we can get all granular on it. You know. Yeah. Sorry, I've no idea why that was suddenly really impassioned me, but it did, and I'm not going to apologise for it.
You don't need to apologise. I think it's great that you're able to share that with us, and important stuff. Right, we're going to listen to it now. This is McCluskey with People Person on X-Posure Radio X. And that was the brilliantly titled Kafkaesque novelist Franz Kafka. And luckily, I have got Andrew Falkous from the band connected to me online to explain such inspired titles. Can you?
Well, the title is a joke. It's an actual joke. I mean, who could be more Kafkaesque than Franz Kafka, you would assume? Although maybe he would fail some of the very stringent tests which are available for what constitutes being Kafkaesque. Kafkaesque or not. That song is interesting to me because that song is about Hugh Edwards, the whole Hugh Edwards situation. But what it's about is the way that instantly as the news broke, you could assess people's cultural and social tribes by their reaction to it. That's what the song is about how sometimes the news, or sometimes issues, that's the thing. I don't think issues are a trap. People's instant reaction to issues can be a trap. Assuming that because somebody is on your side, and I know who's on my side in this world. I'm definitely, not on the side of Nazis, for example. But because if he's on your side, you can make assumptions about a person's guilt or innocence, purely based on things you've assumed about them. That's what the song is about. Whether that relates entirely accurately to the title of the song is another thing entirely, but hey, I don't make the rules, I just enforce them.
So you've got lots of live dates coming up. You've got a big UK tour starting on the 23rd of May. It starts in Manchester and takes in Leeds and Bearded Theory Festival, and then London and Bristol and 2000 Trees and Arctangent. And then you're going over to Europe in October and November, playing across the whole of that continent.
Yes, we are. So we're doing about 20 shows, which is fantastic. We did a few shows last year, went very well. Sold out show in Paris, which never happened in the original incarnation of the band. All we got in Paris were cold paninis and a sense of dread back in 2003. And to be honest, the dread tasted better than the paninis. So it's great. It's exciting. It's a chance to see new places. We're playing in a little festival thing with the Jesus Lizard, who are obviously one of the best bands who ever walked the earth. In next month in La Botanique in Brussels, and that'll be a great experience because we'll get to play, we'll get to see the Jesus Lizard. Damien will get to see this incredible venue. It's like playing in a giant conservatory, which is, say a little bit different from, we're back to the Forum in Tunbridge Wells, which was literally, I don't know if you've ever been there, but literally converted toilet.
Yes.
and smelled exactly like that. So yeah, really exciting year in general. I am made up, and we're doing a couple of festivals. We're doing 2000 Trees and Arctangent, and we're doing those shows as McCluskey and Future of the Left. So that feels, and Million Dead are also playing 2000 Trees. So it makes for, normally you don't get to have three of the bands in your immediate family play at the same festival. So I'm very grateful for that experience, but also very excited. However, I am at this moment in time being emotionally blackmailed into camping on the Saturday night by my daughter. I just want to say publicly that I'm not very happy about this campaign she's launched against me, and I would like it to stop, because camping as a teenager or as a 19 or 20-year-old was a wonderful experience, which brought me closer to my friends, was chaotic and drunk and all of those things. But I'd rather die than camp at a festival again. Beds and showers, they're not optional for me. I don't care how hyper capitalist it makes me sound. I want a bed and I want a shower after I've done a show.
I think that's completely understandable and makes a lot of sense to me. But I suspect your daughter is not yet at that age where she can relate or understand.
No, I think she understands. I feel very strongly about it, but I think she's decided that she's just going to get her own way on this. So I got my own way on the last Lego modular building we bought to build together. So I think she gets to decide on whether I camp after the Future to the Left show at 2000 Trees. It's a hellish bargain, but I made it, so I have to go along with it.
Andy, thanks so much for your time. It's so good to have McCluskey back with new music, I think. I mean, it was exciting. I didn't get to see any of these shows yet, but I will. But it was exciting to think that you were back out there playing music and going across the world and bringing your music to the people. But it's even more exciting to think that there's a new album and there are more shows. So this is a good thing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting. It's not easy. It's like for any band, we've got a little bit more of a head start in some senses, but you've also got negative expectations or connotations because of age or whatever to like get people to put aside. Myself, that's part of it. Part of it is, in direct contrast to what I was saying earlier, there's always be an element of this band, even if there does feel like there's more of an appetite for it, to push against things or try and prove people wrong. It's part of the way we came up. But yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be great. It's going to be a very nice year. I mean, it's really. I'm already sunburned in May, so I mean, there is a lesson there, and it's use sun cream more regularly.
Yeah, but it catches you unawares at the start of the summer, doesn't it? You're kind of still in winter mode.
You're still in winter. I was about to say earlier, actually, I thought, you know what I really want to talk about? I want to talk about how I really struggle to change between seasons. I like all the seasons. I'm not one of these, I love the summer, I hate the winter people, you know. Good things happen in the winter. It's nice to wear a new coat, for example. But transitioning in terms of clothing and psychologically between those seasons, you know, I think there's a PhD in that for somebody somewhere. Yeah, I feel as if a premature summer's been sprung on me somewhat, and I'm a little bit resentful because I'm not entirely ready for it. So if there's anything you can do in your role to maybe levy that, you know, like the one when you're on a drug and you're coming off it, you have to taper it. Maybe we could taper winter, you know, and gradually bring spring through. That would be my idea. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll
work on that in between shows.
Yeah, I'll have a think, and if I have anything I can share with you, I'll let you know. No question.
That would be wonderful. Wonderful. But thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Andy. I'm going to let you go and get on with your transitioning
with seasons.
With seasons. Yeah. But I'm going to play one more song. Not All Steeplejack. Shall I go with that?
You go with whatever song you want. Yeah, that's any song you could mention is a good one for me.
Okay, excellent. This is then another selection from The World Is Still Here and So Are We, and we are rejoicing about that fact. McCluskey back with a new record, and from it, this is Not All Steeplejacks on X-Posure, Radio X.